After years of diligently paying off my mortgage, my brother unexpectedly showed up with a can of bright blue paint, intent on ruining my wedding. Now, he's claiming that my house belongs to him. They've taken me to court over the home I worked hard to buy and the dog they abandoned, all while accusing me of hurting the family. But this time, the judge listened to my side of the story. My parents had urged me to spend the holidays at home, leaving me to care for the dogs while they jetted off on a luxurious vacation without me. After a grueling 5-hour drive, I chose to keep my mouth shut and simply smiled. However, when they returned and saw the state of things, they erupted in anger. Let's rewind a bit. I received the first text in early December this year, "Will you be coming home? It would mean a lot to your dad and me." Then came the one that truly struck a chord, "Without you, the holidays just aren't the same." I spent countless hours staring at that message, the kind of words I had longed to hear for years. It was a sentiment I had rehearsed in my mind so many times that when it finally appeared in my inbox, I didn't even question it. I smiled to myself. Work had been grueling, my team was short-staffed, and my sleep schedule had devolved into a series of naps squeezed between Zoom meetings. Yet, I reminded myself that they missed me, that they wanted me there. So, I did something I rarely do, I took a break. It took a week of back and forth with my manager, shifting deadlines and promising to check in, but I finally secured 5 full days off. I bought a ticket and even packed a few modest gifts, hoping we would actually talk, play board games, and laugh at those cheesy holiday movies together. The flight was long and uncomfortable, with a seatmate who seemed to be consuming something that smelled like a mix of hot cheese and feet. But I didn't mind, a foolish optimism, one that had survived years of neglect, bubbled within me. With my suitcase in hand and a smile plastered on my face, I stepped out of the Uber. At that moment, I saw my dad's car trunk opening, and 3 large suitcases were being stuffed inside. For a fleeting second, I thought they might be surprising me, perhaps we were all going on a trip together. But as my mom spotted me and waved enthusiastically, calling out, "There she is!" Just in time, my holiday fantasy began to dissolve. Just in time for what? I blinked, confusion washing over me. "The cruise," she replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She pointed to the dog, who was peering at me from behind the front door, and I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. "You're going on a cruise?" I asked, incredulous. "Just a quick getaway," my dad said, slamming the trunk shut. "We've had a stressful year." Josh, who was in the passenger seat, smiled at me. "You'll be fine here. You love the quiet, this is perfect for you." He said it as if I were a machine, designed solely for silence. My mom handed me a folded list titled Bentley's Holiday Routine while I stood there, still clutching my suitcase. It included instructions like rub his ears clockwise, not counterclockwise, and lavender diffuser at 8 p.m. I didn't say a word, I just smiled and nodded, as I always do when I'm trying not to cry. They gave me a quick hug, and my mom reminded me to keep Bentley away from cheese. My dad instructed me to pick up a delivery scheduled for Wednesday. Then, they hopped into their car and drove off. No one asked about my flight, no one invited me to join them, and no one even inquired about what I had eaten. Suddenly, I was alone in a house that I owned. I hadn't lived with a dog in years, but I had officially adopted Bentley because I couldn't say no to my younger brother's request. I locked the door behind me, and Bentley crouched at my feet, his tail wagging uncertainly as I whispered, "Hi, buddy." I knelt down to pet him. He smelled like wet socks and old blankets. He looked leaner than I remembered, and his fur felt coarse. His water bowl was empty, and I noticed his nails were too long. Something twisted inside me as I sat on the couch, filled his bowl, and removed the food they had left behind. I gazed at the flickering Christmas lights, hoping they might rearrange themselves into an apology, but nothing happened. The house was silent, the heat kicked on, and Bentley curled up beside me. I had hoped this year would be different, that I hadn't hung up. They never thanked me for paying off the house or for watching a dog they had long since lost interest in, as soon as the novelty wore off. Still, I yearned for a call from them. I wanted them to turn the car around and say, "We're sorry. We didn't realize we love you. Please come with us." But they didn't. They wouldn't. Bentley sighed softly as he slept beside me. After giving him a long look, I made my way to the kitchen and opened my laptop. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I was searching for, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending that this was normal because it wasn't. Perhaps, just maybe, I had reached my limit of waiting for someone else to notice. Bentley nestled against me on the couch, resting his weight on my leg as if to anchor me in place. He smelled of old shoes and sadness, and his fur was patchy and matted. I didn't mind, though. He was the only one who hadn't left me. No one came out to say, "Surprise. We didn't actually abandon you. We were just kidding. We do love you." I continued to stare at the empty living room, still hoping for someone to show up. I didn't understand why the feeling hit me so hard. Perhaps it was because I had convinced myself that I was more important than I truly was, that they would eventually see me as more than just the girl who paid for things if I kept providing. I always believed they would let me in if I could just fix whatever was wrong with me. Growing up, I thought there must be something inherently flawed about me, a missing piece that made people shrug instead of embrace. I was the odd one, the quiet girl who color-coded her books, who enjoyed creating Excel spreadsheets, and who preferred math problems over makeup. When I was 10, my mother half-jokingly remarked, "You weren't the easiest child to bond with." Everyone insisted that my brother's teasing was merely a sign of affection, and when I cried, they told me I was too sensitive. So, I stopped crying, but that didn't help. On one of my birthdays, I think I was 8, they threw me a party. I was over the moon with excitement. My brothers even claimed to have invited the neighborhood kids. I brought out the cupcakes I had baked myself and wore my best outfit. However, when I arrived outside, there were no kids in the yard, just a sheet of paper taped to the fence with math problems and numbers on it. Josh laughed and said, "Your kind of party." After that, they all rushed off to someone else's house for the real celebration. I spent hours sitting on the porch steps, solving the equations on that paper, thinking maybe if I figured them all out, they would come back. They didn't. I thought I would fit in better by high school. I tried to laugh at the right moments, even though the clothes I wore didn't feel like mine. I borrowed them from Dorothy to avoid looking out of place. I practiced smiling in front of the mirror and joined clubs I had no interest in, but I was still labeled as intense, aloof, and somewhat robotic. I once overheard Dorothy say, "You're not ugly." I tried to learn how to act like a real girl, but I just didn't know how. Still, I was the one overlooked for invitations, the one who only received thank you texts in response to Venmo requests. I was often told, "You're just really hard to get close to." My parents didn't attend my graduation, saying, "We're proud of you, honey, but just don't let it go to your head." I got accepted into an Ivy League school, but they claimed plane tickets were too expensive. Then I saw pictures from Josh's birthday vacation to Cabo that same week. I told myself it wasn't personal, they just had a stronger bond with him. I thought if I could just be more of anything, they would start to see me. I graduated, and whenever they asked for money, I sent it. The mortgage on the home they occupied was a constant reminder of my efforts, yet it felt like I was invisible. I had poured my heart and soul into everything, but it never seemed to be enough. I was left with the nagging feeling that I was always going to be the one who was overlooked, the one who was never truly seen. I even helped Dorothy during her divorce, thinking that perhaps charity could fill the void where intimacy should have been. I reasoned that if I put enough effort into them, I could make up for the lack of connection. However, I finally realized that if someone has chosen not to love you, no amount of giving can change that. I felt it wash over me, not anger or betrayal, but a slow, heavy realization that in their lives, I was merely a stand-in, a human-sized financial strategy. I felt like the world's biggest fool for ever believing I could be more. I surveyed the mess they had left behind, food on the counters, dirty dishes, boxes that weren't fully packed. Even when I returned home for the first time in a year, they seemed unconcerned about keeping the property tidy. In their eyes, I wasn't truly a guest, I was the assistant, the responsible one, the integrated safety net. Bentley looked thinner than I remembered, and his water bowl had a strange odor. His nails were too long, and he let out a small whine when I knelt down to scratch behind his ears, as if he had been waiting weeks for someone to notice him. As I leaned my head against the wall, I began to wonder if I was the problem after all. Maybe I was too difficult to love, too quiet, too strange, too clinical. I tried to pinpoint the exact moment I became invisible, reliving every interaction I had ever had with my family. Perhaps I shouldn't have come home. Maybe my success made me arrogant, or perhaps I had simply given up trying. Or maybe they had made no effort at all. I used to think that setting boundaries was a sign of selfishness, that only unkind people said no. I believed that sacrifice was necessary for love, especially when it hurt. But now, I just felt small, worn out, and finished. I got up, and Bentley groaned softly. I filled his bowl with fresh water and offered him a treat I found in the pantry. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I knew something had shifted inside me, but I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't broken or shattered, I was simply changed. I spent a considerable amount of time looking at the search results after typing "what to do if a family lives in your house rent-free." I wasn't sure if I would actually follow through on anything. My sense of authority felt lacking. I didn't feel smart, I just felt done. Let them say I overreacted and was aloof. Let them express themselves however they wanted, they had already made their choices. Bentley pressed his nose against my palm, and after giving him a gentle head rub, I muttered, "If there's something wrong with me, at least I'm finally doing something about it." I found one of the articles helpful enough to print, though I did so slowly, as if unsure. The paper slipped off the tray. It was a Sunday evening when they returned. I stayed home due to a family emergency, and my supervisor had allowed me to work remotely. Bentley sprang out of his dog bed and barked, startled rather than happy, so I knew exactly when the car pulled into the driveway. My heart raced more than I wanted to admit as I remained still in the hallway, like an alarm going off in a once secure area. The car door slammed, and I heard familiar, reckless voices. "I told you she'd be fine," my mother said. "She loves her quiet time." Josh added, "She probably reorganized the pantry for fun," followed by more laughter. I remained motionless, peering through the peephole. The first person to notice was Dorothy. She jiggled the handle, and I could picture the slow boil of entitlement building in her as her brows furrowed in confusion. "Why is the door locked?" Dad tried his key, but it didn't work. Josh then attempted to shoulder the door. I scooped up Bentley before he could get any more agitated. When he barked again, louder this time, my arm shook, but not from fear. Something more subdued was brewing inside me. Then came a knock. "Nicole, open up. The lock is jammed." Bentley and I sat on the couch as I scratched his ears. Another knock followed, harder this time. "Nicole. What the hell? Did you change the locks?" I didn't respond. I had changed the locks 3 days after they left. I was practical, not angry, though I had plenty of emotions swirling inside me. The house was a mess, Bentley had been neglected, and the damage was evident in several rooms. Doors were left unlocked, trash was overflowing. I had every right to protect my home because I was the rightful owner. Before taking any action, I had consulted a lawyer. They returned with the expectation that everything would still revolve. Josh began shouting that he was going to sue me when Dad suggested we skip church for my math competition. His voice soared to a level I hadn't heard since I was 15. "You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you." I chuckled, though I hadn't meant to. I was taken aback by the sudden, piercing sound that escaped me. I repeated, "Everything you've done for me? You mean the financial black hole? The free babysitting? Or was it the joke about leaving me alone with arithmetic problems at my birthday party?" More shouting ensued, and I turned to leave. I informed my lawyer over the phone that they had arrived. She instructed me not to open the door and to let them know that any correspondence should henceforth go through her office. Josh then tried to pry open the kitchen window by going around the side from the porch, and Dorothy let out a shriek that could be heard by the neighbors. My mom was sobbing in the yard, incredulous that the waitress had just handed him the bill. Dad paced back and forth, and I made a call to the police. I provided them with the deed, pictures of the house's condition, and the veterinarian's report from Bentley's examination. When the officers arrived, they were composed and professional. One of them turned to my dad and said, "Sir, she owns the house. There's no lease agreement. She has every legal right to secure the property." My mother sobbed, "You're just going to let her do this to us?" The officer replied, "She hasn't done anything illegal." For once, nobody stood up for my family. Nobody twisted the narrative to make me the antagonist. There were no jokes at my expense or pitying glances, just the facts, just limits, just someone listening to me. The police suggested that they leave and allow any disagreements to be resolved through official legal channels. My family stood there, astonished, incensed, and embarrassed, but eventually, they departed. I watched from the window as their car backed out of the driveway. Dorothy flipped me off from the passenger seat, and Josh yelled something I couldn't hear. My mother didn't turn around, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the one left behind. Bentley climbed into my lap, grounding me with his weight. I whispered, "I think we're going to be okay." I had always hoped that if I just fixed myself, they would accept me. I thought they would notice me if I put in enough effort, smiled enough, and contributed enough. But I didn't need to be fixed. Perhaps I wasn't broken, maybe being the quiet one was just part of who I was. I refrained from crying, I might have thought about it, but no tears remained. Instead, I felt a strong, throbbing sensation of something else, power, calm, release. I no longer felt wounded or angry, I just felt finished. And sometimes, that can be stronger than anger. I thought that should be the end of it. However, when entitlement has been your family's love language for decades, people like mine don't lose quietly. 3 days later, I began receiving emails. My dad was the last to reach out, followed by my mother and sister. Confusion gave way to anger, then to desperate manipulation. "You've embarrassed us. We don't understand why you're doing this. You're being dramatic, Nicole. This isn't like you." And finally, Dorothy's icing on the cake, "You seriously need help." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded all of this to my lawyer. The escalation continued. Assuming I would be away, they attempted to break in again, this time in the middle of the night. The security video captured Josh and my dad trying to force the back door with a crowbar as the motion sensor lights flickered on. Once more, the police arrived. Thanks for watching and sticking around until the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode.